We are back with our second episode of our second installment in a three-parter with our Teachers of the Year upcoming in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed them as much as we have so far.
Had great conversations last week, and we've got several more for you today that I, again, just think they're really opening up my eyes to some concepts and thoughts that I never really would have considered or didn't know were relevant or prevalent within the Christian education realm. All
of these teachers bring something really unique to the classroom, things that we have never heard of, things that, quite frankly, you know, we're going to have these people back.
Well, we were making some notes, like, I'm gonna go here. I'm going to talk to this person some more.
Many different faith backgrounds, of course, many different states from all over the country. So I hope you'll enjoy the second installment of our spectacular, this is part 2 of 13 terrific Christian school teachers. Enjoy it.
So continuing on with our, I feel like our nationwide tour of teachers today, we've now got Minnesota. So we have Greg Preston with us today from Minnesota. So excited to have you, and congratulations on your nomination.
So good to be here.
Loving the different variety of people that we've been speaking with, just their backgrounds and the experience, the range that's coming.
Yeah, we've only done Teachers of the Year for 3 years now. This is our third run, and of course the pool of possible winners has grown exponentially. So you're an elite group now because we've had many more people submit entries, and so to be selected, quite an honor. And that is what I've noticed about all of you is you all have, and I know you've spent some time with your colleagues, you all have such really wildly diverse backgrounds, demographics, geography. It's true. It's really remarkable, and it warms my heart to see Christian education in every corner of the country.
I agree. It has been, what an encouragement to all of the teachers that have been here.
What is it that you tell us just a little bit? We always want to give our listeners just an idea of your background in terms of your education experience, what you've done, kind of where you've been to where you are now.
So interesting. I grew up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and so went to the University of Wisconsin, history degree there, and my love, I would say, kind of like my 3 loves that I had. Really were formed early for me. And one of them was that my dad was a basketball coach and a teacher. And as a young boy, I saw a high school basketball game at a state tournament, and that is what I wanted to do. I had teachers in grade school. I had one in particular that was about 6'8". He was also a college basketball player that would read great books to us. And I was like, this is amazing. And then my greatest love was when Jesus Christ completely transformed my life. And so of those 3 things, I wanted to coach basketball, I wanted to read history, and I wanted to be a foreign missionary. And so at a young age, even when I was in junior high and high school, any of the above, I was okay to do. And teaching at Hillcrest Academy was all of the above.
That's amazing. Wow.
Found out when I ended up teaching there, we have kids from 20 different nations that come to school there.
Is that a fact?
12 different states. And about half from the Fergus Falls area. More than that now.
Fergus Falls, Minnesota, and Hillcrest Lutheran, we were discussing this a little bit before we started talking, and forgive my ignorance, we have done previous shows on this. The Lutheran tradition in particular with Christian education, could you kind of briefly define that for folks that don't maybe understand the dynamic, or the system, if you will, I guess?
Okay.
There's an affiliation there.
Yes, with the church body. However, I would have to say that our church body is, I would define it maybe Lutheran in theology a little bit. Evangelical in practice. Because it did break away from the Norwegian Lutheran State Church that was extremely sacramental. And I would say that it does hold to Lutheran theology, but a much bigger tent. In terms of...
And must you be a Lutheran to attend?
No.
You don't? So similar to Catholic school, I guess, that way.
And why then, obviously, more evangelical? Because you're you're reaching out. You're reaching
Right.
out and trying to bring in versus
Absolutely.
just come alongside.
And so you, as I read, and having just met you, I hope I'm right here. Do you teach Bible as well as history?
do.
You do.
So I teach history. I teach humanities.
Okay.
So I will teach history and Bible, maybe to the sophomores, in 2 different periods, and then fuse them together.
Okay.
So the readings that we're doing in Bible will also relate to the history
Okay.
that we're doing.
You have kids, folks that are seniors, they're about to go on to college generally. That's the group
Yes.
you work with. By that time, I assume you're dealing with students that are pretty steeped in the tradition. Is that fair to say? Or do you have kids that have come in, our show called Making the Leap, we talk about people that have left public school and make a leap into Christian school. It's not often you see kids late in high school do that. Do you ever have that?
All of the above. We actually have quite a few because we're a dorm school.
Okay.
We're a partial dorm school.
Okay.
Many come from homes, but also, and so many of our students that come from across the seas or different states will often come for their junior and senior years only.
Oh, wow.
So this is almost more like a
Boarding
college,
school,
if you will.
college
Boarding-
setting,
yes.
like, okay. Wow, that is for sure a first. I don't think we've had that.
I'm going to let you brag on yourself
Yeah.
then. You're Teacher of the Year. You were nominated. I assume this is an institution that you're probably pretty proud of too, and it sounds like it's a destination. I mean, people seek it out.
Yes.
Why?
The school, I think that part of the reason is that it really does have such a long tradition. I mean, it started in 1916. And so you go around the world or around the country, it's grandparents, parents, children, and now grandchildren that will come back to school there.
Wow.
So you have a lot of family names that will come from. We have a big group, for instance, like in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York, Connecticut, who have sent their grandkids, sent their children, and then their children. So that also is kind of an interesting part of Hillcrest.
They
as well.
live on campus in many cases. Then.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've had, I think, in some big years, maybe 100 that will live in the dormitories, and then maybe 100 or 150 that will live off campus. Now it's shifted a little bit more to, because we've added a K-6, more students from the Fergus Falls area.
Which has to be a benefit, I would guess. I don't know
Yes.
I don't know the size of Fergus Falls, but I am guessing it was
Not
a needed thing and not many people. Is that right?
About 14,000.
Okay, so small.
live
So
in-
this is a
It is.
huge benefit then.
That also
Right.
means people that come from out of state, I assume that you have, I mean, I think the Christian educator and student relationship is more intimate anyway, but this has got to be extraordinarily
It is
intimate.
incredible. It has become my wife and I and our family, our mission. We live a block from school, and so many of these students, we often host students that will live in our house, go to school there. They will spend vacations with us.
Wow.
They will, and because it's a dorm school, the student life and activities director will have their weekend events. So it is, in some cases, the off-campus and on-campus, once school starts until it ends, you're together, not 24/7, but pretty
Close to
close.
Do you have your own children?
Yes.
You do. So that's unique. I mean, they probably
Right.
see some of your students as almost pseudo brothers and sisters, I would
Yes,
guess. Right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's amazing.
It
And
is.
your wife, does she also teach, or?
She does. She's been a teacher all over. She's taught at the school. She's been teaching in area schools, special education.
Wow.
And
That's
so-
really neat. And I think just a cool, like I said, I was saying all over the country, but just running the gamut of every type of school that we
Yes.
see when we talk about people that are just now starting, ready to go for this fall versus, 100 plus years and what's in between. It's amazing.
What would you say? I always like to ask people to make a pitch for their school or your situation. Maybe parents that are, again, we encourage parents to consider, make the leap, leave your public school and maybe try something new. Why somewhere like Fergus Falls?
Well, quite a few in the Fergus area have taken the leap. And
That's awesome.
we have made the change to a classical Christian school, so rigorous in terms of especially literature. apologetics.
Right.
And that is something that is so needed today.
Yes.
But the variety of things too. We have students from Vietnam and China and Korea. We have about 20 that come from Norway every year. We have some coming from Brazil and many from Africa, especially in the area where Boko Haram is really harassing many of our brothers and sisters in Nigeria. They are coming. And so you have the world there. And it just is like unbelievable where you get to see the nations have come to a little place where you've got brothers and sisters all over the world.
All unified in Christ at the same time. How great.
I love it.
It's like Epcot Center, but Christ Center.
You are right.
I love it.
Maybe not a crazy ride, but...
Greg, congratulations on being one of our Teachers of the Year. It's an honor to meet you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
we'll
very
see you in
much.
Washington, D.C.
Okay, we'll do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as you've seen, our Teacher of the Year recipients range from all different places, all different faith groups, and that's one of the things that the Herzog Foundation values so much is there really is no one way to educate a child except in the Word of God. That's what we believe in, and so we're really glad to have Stacy Hadel with us from St. Anne Catholic, our resident Catholic this year.
Yes,
the award
thank
recipients.
you for having me.
Nice to meet you, and
I'm
congratulations.
so happy to be here. Thank you. It's an honor.
Second grade.
Yes.
Now, this is fascinating because Christine and I were just talking, going over our notes about why you were one of our Teacher of the Year recipients, and you specialize in something called meditative reflection in second grade. That sounds deep for me.
Yes, I know. It's hard as adults, isn't it? It really is.
What in the world? Tell us about it.
So I feel like in our world today, our kids are yearning for silence. I think even as adults, we're yearning for silence. I think we are constantly flooded with information and stimulation. I find myself even the minute I'm bored picking up my phone. And there's an art in being bored. You know, the Bible tells us be still, be still. And so when we start to talk about the miracles of Jesus in my classroom, I think it's really important that the students take time to just sit and reflect. And they know during that time in our classroom, it's silent. There is not one voice. There is not music playing. I turn the lights off. They take a piece of paper and they draw or write whatever about that miracle has moved them.
Wow.
And it is the things that the children come up with at 7 years old. It's remarkable.
That's what I wanted to know. Do they think deeply about that?
Oh, the things that they come up with, I mean, they connect, like the feeding of the 5,000, they connect to their own life. They make these references, and you know, I tell them we start the same way before we start our reflection process. I say, religion is man's pursuit of God, but Christianity and Catholicism is God's pursuit of man. So how is God pursuing you? How did God pursue you through this today? Which even as an adult, I have to remind myself all the time, how is God pursuing me? I have to take that time to really think about that. God pursued me when it came to, being a teacher. I never thought I would be a teacher, and I feel so blessed and I'm so happy, and this was never a path I saw for myself.
So I'm curious, what path did you see? If this was not your first plan, what was your first plan?
So my degree is in psychology, and when I graduated from college, like most 22-year-olds, I was a little bit lost. I thought I wanted to get my PhD, but felt really burnt out. So I was kind of doing what the masses were doing. A lot of my friends were getting hired at big corporations, and Cerner here in Kansas City was on a hiring spree, and I thought, oh, why not? So I was just kind of confused. I lasted for about 6 months. It was not my gig. My parents can attest that I called them crying every morning, and I was like, this is just not God's plan for my life. And I ended up moving back home kind of like with my tail between my legs, didn't know what I wanted to do. And I always kept in touch with my high school math teacher. She was a good mentor and confidant, and she reached out to me and she said, Stacy, I'm at a private school. It was a non-parochial school. She said, you don't need to be certified, but we need a warm body in the 4th and 5th grade math classroom. And the school year starts in a week.
Oh my gosh.
And so I, by the grace of God, was hired, and that is what led me ultimately into Catholic school. So I had 5 years in just private schools, and then
having never taught before.
But
you just liked math, or you knew math well?
She said, I feel like you can do it. And I was like, well, I'm glad that you have faith in me, because at the time I had no idea what I was doing. I would just sit and observe teachers and did my best. And, you know, like every first year teacher, it's overwhelming, but especially with zero experience and no student teaching, nothing. Wow. So then, you know, I was 5 years in a private school and felt like I was getting a little bit burnt out.
Okay.
And the doors opened at St. Anne, and it completely renewed my spirit.
And in that time, then, I'm assuming, did you go back then for an education?
Yes, I'm getting my master's right now.
So you're getting your master's.
Yes.
It's amazing to have that.
St. Anne Catholic School is how old? Do you know?
Oh my goodness. Well, Michael, who interviewed me this morning, was the graduating class of 72.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, okay.
So I'm pretty sure I'm probably ratting him out there.
Our own,
I know.
Our own Michael Ryan from The Lion.
Yes. So, I mean, a long time.
So it's been a while.
A long time.
And in that time, I assume the school, I know you're relatively new to it, all things considered, but I assume you, like every other school, has seen quite a bit of growth.
Yes. It's amazing. It's amazing. I think that parents are starting to realize more and more the value of that faith-centered education.
And do you recall, I'm just curious because I don't know, and we'd had a conversation with some parents I think it was last year when we were at a Christian school out of the Kansas area, that they were having a hard time finding schools, private schools that were not Catholic because they weren't Catholic but they wanted a Christian school. Right. So I'm curious, with the Catholic school, is that a requirement that people attending are Catholic or one parent, or I'm just curious how that works.
No, so we have students that are Christian that go to church at Presbyterian churches, Lutheran. They are, of course, required to come to Mass each week. Right. They don't take the sacraments. They do those at their home church. Okay. So
which would allow for some growth is what I'm at.
Yes,
that's where I was kind of wondering. Because
absolutely.
You don't have to be Catholic to go to some of these where I kind of felt like they were saying you did.
You went to Catholic school.
I did.
And Catholic school was sort of the OG Christian school, I think, in a lot of ways, right?
I mean, Lutheran,
that's true.
And the Lutherans.
Yes.
So you find now that non-traditional Catholics are reaching out.
Yes, absolutely.
And is that because the established reputation of the Catholic Church? I think a lot of people who maybe don't know what Christian school even is, they think, well, the Catholics have been doing it forever.
Right. Well, and I think it's a very clear set of expectations and boundaries, and I think parents are starting to gravitate towards that more. We have a very high set of expectations for our students and for our families, and if you set high expectations, children will meet them, which I think has been lost in some ways in public schools. So but yes, absolutely.
You get them at second grade young, and we talk about how in all these Christian schools and all the folks that we've been talking with, it is the young age kids, the explosive growth. Older kids, maybe not so much, but I know you guys are busting at the seams. Is that true, the younger kids?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that is great news because now you're really getting on the ground level. Our show is called Making the Leap, and we focus so much on our own family story. Of jumping in middle school or high school and entertaining it's a tougher walk. Much easier when the kids are little and getting started right away.
Yes, absolutely. And they recognize at a very young age how blessed they are to receive that education. Wow. I mean, my students, we talk about that regularly. We have a week called Catholic Schools Week, and we really celebrate the fact that we are able to worship in our school and with our fellow classmates. And my students, even at 7 years old, are very appreciative and realize the value, which comes from home too.
I have to tell you, it is such a pleasure to meet you, and I am so glad to congratulate you as one of our award recipients.
Thank you so much. I feel so honored. It's just been a blessing.
We're going to see you in Washington, D.C.
Yes, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, Stacy.
Thank you.
So we're speaking now with Jamie Reese, who is out of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. So we're glad to kind of bring it back home a little bit.
Yeah, the boot heel of Missouri.
That's right.
Here's what I know about Cape Girardeau, and he's my broadcasting hero. Rush Limbaugh comes from Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
Yeah. Fun fact, he spoke at my graduation.
No.
In high school.
Oh, stop. Well, now you just... Now we have to shut it down and have a moment.
Well, that's so amazing. I never got to meet him. I interviewed him twice, but never met him. How cool is that?
Yeah.
That's cool. And that name down there, that's a big name.
It's a big name.
But anyway,
amazing.
what I do know about the Limbaugh family is the education in Cape Girardeau, it doesn't get the credit it's due. There are a lot of smart people in Cape Girardeau.
There are, for sure.
And Christian
doctors,
education.
lawyers.
Doctors and lawyers. Christian education in that part of the state. How would you describe it? Healthy?
I would say healthy. You know, Cape Girardeau has several Christian schools, Prodigy being one of the newer ones that has started over the past 15 years. But I would say because our school is a little bit different and the way that we teach and our style of teaching is not traditional, our school for sure is growing because of that difference.
So tell me what makes that difference, because when we were reading the description of the school and that term micro school is used, and then of course, you know, I know that we have other ones, hybrid and all, you know, all these different things, which I think you're kind of a combination of. Tell us what makes your school unique in that respect and why it's that way.
So our school is, first off, we sit on 38 acres.
Wow.
Prior to it becoming a school, that property was a retreat center. And so we've recently taken that property 6 years ago. So the first part of the school, it was in actually a church building.
Okay.
And they kind of hopped around until they found their permanent home, which now sits on 38 acres, which we love because we value outdoor learning. We value outdoor learning. We want the students to be innovating, exploring. We want them serving. We want them just learning that education is more than just curriculum and textbooks. So it's like lifelong learning, becoming like the joy of learning.
Right.
One of your fellow awardees and colleagues mentioned that you teach in a yurt.
Yes.
Is that true? I don't know. A lot of people even know what a yurt is.
Yeah.
And I love that idea because I'm always looking for things. I'm like, we need to go stay in a yurt. We need to go stay in a yurt. But I didn't think about teaching in a yurt. So
Teaching in a yurt, it's
that's
totally
your classroom?
different.
Or
yes.
Every day?
Yeah, every day. So
What
for
is
the
that for
past
people
2
that
years,
don't know?
I've taught in a yurt. It's actually a Mongolian tent.
Okay.
It's a circle. So it's a circle, and the walls are slatted, like they're like diamonds. And it comes in a kit, and it's, you know, it goes up really quickly. The students helped build it.
That's neat.
How many of those are there on this property?
We have 4 on our campus.
And how many students are enrolled in your school?
We have around 200 for this coming school year.
And of those 200, they bounce between those 4 yurts?
No. So picture one-room schoolhouse. We have multi-age classrooms, so pre-KK, first, second, third, fourth.
So kind of blended, a little bit blended. Okay.
And each classroom is its own cabin or yurt or building. So if you go back to when I was talking about it being a retreat center, they had several different buildings that were cabins where people could come and stay when they needed just a reprieve from the ministry. And so they would stay in small cabins, log cabins. Some of them some of them kind of look like a pole barn just thrown up, you know. And then you've got your yurts.
Were you raised as a Christian educator then? Did you come up in Christian school?
Actually, my dad was in the ministry, various types. Youth pastor, camp director, all kinds of different forms of ministry. And before he kind of stepped out of the church community, he just was kind of burned.
Sure.
And he was like, somebody came to him and said, what would you do if you could do anything? And he said, well, I think I'd help people that are recovering from church hurt. And I just want a retreat center. And he said, all right, let's do it. And so they funded it, and my dad directed it and led it for, I think, since 2004 is when they kind of started it. And then in 2018, so about 14 years, he really poured blood, sweat, and tears into it. And he still pours all of that into it. He lives on the campus. That was kind of one of their things, like, hey, we want you guys to have this, but we get to stay here. And so they live on the campus, and my dad kind of oversees and caretakes and
so he's part of the school where you are now working.
Yes.
As he's overseeing everything.
Yeah, he oversees like the property, I would say. Yeah.
What a unique story. That's something that that's what I love most about doing what we're doing and meeting the people that we meet, is you just come across these stories that never would I hear that otherwise.
Yes.
Like, what a cool thing.
It is a really cool place.
And affordability, is that, you have 200 students, has that grown and will it grow? And how are you, I guess, here at the Herzog Foundation, we're always teaching schools and teachers and administrators how to reach out and market. How do you grow your school?
Sure, that's a good question. So they started with 19 students the first year.
Wow.
In the basement of a church, there was water on the floor, and just kind of those things that you think of when you're like just starting, startup school, and like everything that could go wrong was going. They were cleaning things up, putting the tables, folding up the chairs, putting them out every single day, and so they eventually got into a bigger church building where they had great classrooms and all of that, but there was some damage done to the building, and so eventually it came to the point of getting to our permanent home where we are now. I would say the growth spectrum, our head of school has always said about 175 students pre-K through 8th grade.
Okay.
And I always say high school is its own beast.
Right.
Yes,
because that's my thing, right? And so high school, we've kind of said would be 60 to 80 students. Right now we're around 40.
Okay.
And so high school does have some room for growth. But those lower grades, they're kind of they're almost maxing out.
Yeah.
His goal is to have 2 of each class.
Are you seeing then the trend that we hear almost every guest we talk to? What you're hearing is the young kids, the elementary school, the K through 8 particularly, they're exploding in size. Is that that's what you're saying?
For sure.
And what do you attribute that to? Is it the culture?
Oh, for sure. I think that parents are starting to see just a shift in the traditional school setting, the public school system, with regulations and things that the teachers are and aren't allowed to do, and so parents are starting to say this is not okay with me anymore, and so they're starting to rise up to say they've got to be somewhere else.
I know that we want to always, be respectful of everybody's time, but I wanted to ask you quickly about the program that I kind of heard was attributed to you, or not a program, but kind of your innovative approach to things, where you're pairing up your students with nursing home residents and doing some projects and doing some collaboration there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite projects to talk about, so that'll come easy. So I try to always turn everything back over to the students, student-driven, student interest, student-led. They're high schoolers. They should be able and capable to do things. And so actually in the summer last year, I had a friend of mine who owned like a flower where you can go and pick your own flowers. That's kind of a trending thing right now. And it was the end of the season. She's like, hey, I just need somebody to come cut these flowers down. Can your students do that? And I was like, yes, because one of our values is a prodigy serves. We have a prodigy innovates, a prodigy learns, a prodigy loves learning, so a prodigy serves. And I was like, you know what, that's a great way for me to introduce that value to them the first week of school. So we went out, the kids all were picking flowers. I had the girly table all arranging the flowers and in vases and, and so, they were doing that, and then my dad is a hospice chaplain now, and so I said, hey, which nursing home can we go to with you, and we'll sing some songs and we'll deliver these flowers. He's like, yes, let's do it. So we went, and the kids were very awkward, very awkward.
Sure.
It was very uncomfortable, and so we did the thing, and I'm trying to be like, it's okay, So we pulled away, and I pulled over into a park, and I was like, I sat them all down and I made them go around the circle. I'm like, tell me what's going on. What are you thinking? And each one of them, some of them were like, well, it was smelled in there.
Right. Like,
it smelled, or it was like awkward, or I don't know how to talk to them, or they were lonely and it hurt my heart, or, they were across the board, all kinds of things. And I said, well, how can we help solve that? Because that's project-based learning at the heart, is like finding a problem and how can I help solve it?
Right.
And so through a series of many brainstorming sessions and blood, sweat, and tears, we came up, they came up with an idea of, well, we want to help these residents. in the process of this, we were also reading the book Tuesdays with Maury. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
Oh my gosh.
Mitch Albom.
Yes.
Great book.
Yep.
And so Mitch is interviewing his professor, right? And he has this list that he's basically going down. Tell me about love. Tell me about marriage. Tell me about death. Tell me about... And so the students were like, let's do what Mitch did. Let's write a list, and then that's what we'll talk to our people about, because they came up with this idea to form a connection and a partnership with a local nursing home. And we had grand buddies and we would go and see them every other week, and they just interviewed them, and they had certain questions that they would sit down and just talk to, and some of them were super awkward at first, and by the time it was over, they were their best friends.
That's amazing.
So it kind of culminated into the kids creating a video montage, because they would record every time they were there, and then they also created a booklet, and then at the very end we had like a reception, Dappers and Dames reception, where they got to dress up. We did a theme, and we did karaoke, and we had food, and then when my kids actually had prom, they went back and like showed them their outfits, and it was just precious.
Awesome.
Like the connection, because there's that intergenerational connection there that is lost.
How special. That is undoubtedly why, Jamie Reese, you're one of our Christian school teachers of the year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we'll see you in Washington.
Yes. So excited. Thanks.
We welcome Jennifer Tonkinson, Valley Christian School in Chandler, Arizona. Welcome here.
Thank you.
You're a podcaster too.
Yes, my husband and I have a nonprofit called Unwanted Fraternity, and we are able to do a podcast about grief and how you get through that journey with the Lord.
Wow. That is independent of your teaching.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That was something God put on our plate, and we're like, okay, this too. So
I think that's kind of how it is, I think, a lot in the Christian education realm or in the Christian world. I feel like people are trying to be discerning on what they're listening to and what they're hearing, and how to take what they know, not just into the classroom, but out, because what you're doing with your podcast, that is education as well, for not just for people you're speaking with, but people who are listening. So that's really impressive.
Yeah.
Congratulations on being Teacher of the Year. You are a language arts or English teacher. What is that called these days? I forget.
We call it language arts.
Okay.
It's literature and grammar and writing all put together.
Did you read how you were nominated? Why you were nominated? Who nominated you?
Honestly do not know how I was nominated, which has been really special that someone out there thought I should be nominated. Thank you so much.
Well, we're not going to spoil the surprise yet.
Oh,
Because,
okay. Do I get to find out?
You will find out.
Oh, I'm so excited.
And it's a lot of fun out in D.C., as a matter of fact.
Oh, I
So
can't wait.
We'll tell you all about
I've
that.
never really been to D.C., so that'd be fun.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
Museum of the Bible. We have so much fun. First class. You're going to love it. And we'll see you there. But tell us a little about you and what you do out there in Chandler, Arizona. One of our first guests, I think, from Arizona, by the way.
I think so.
Yes, I'm paving the way. I have the privilege of serving as English language arts teacher for 7th and 8th grade. Okay. And I also run our student life program for our junior high, and we're bringing in the middle school this year as well. So I'm very excited about that. We have about 300 students on our 5th through 8th grade campus. Okay. And so I like to plan the fun activities, and we have a really good time building community outside the classroom. And then I also teach. This year I'm just going to be teaching 8th grade language arts. So
that's a tough year. You guys that went, I mean, you started in public school teaching middle school, and I always heard middle schoolers are kind of this unique group, and I don't know if that's the same in Christian school.
Yes.
Like, that's a weird bunch, right?
You can put Jesus on it, but they're still the same person.
Why do you gravitate toward middle schoolers?
You know, it's funny. I started out thinking I was going to be a high school English teacher. I student taught in senior English and sophomore English, and then the Lord said, nope, you're in junior high. And I said, oh, really, Lord? And I just love them. They are the most amazing people. They're just, every day's a whole new person. And they're funny. They're funny. They teach me all the new terms out there. We could have a whole podcast on junior high language right now. It's like
right? You could just throw that out and start working it.
We've got some weird words coming at us. And so,
how long have you done it? How long have you been teaching? Has it always been Christian education?
No, I started out in the public sector in Texas and was able to do that for a little while, and then I've just been in Christian education for about the last 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Have you seen a shift in Christian education from just in those 10 years? Have you seen growth, shrinking? Have you seen clientele changing?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I started out with kids who had biblical teaching at home, and they kind of just fell into place. They just knew the Bible, and we had the curriculum, And when 2020 happened and we had to have online learning, it did create a different kind of learner. They don't have the ability so much to just sit still and listen as much. And so we really had to talk through that. But my heart is foundational principles of learning. You're the learner, I'm the teacher, and we can get back to that. So we don't have to accommodate that necessarily. But we are seeing an influx of students coming in who don't really know the foundational principles of the scripture. And they don't have it in the home as much. And so parents are just flocking to the Christian school in order to have that foundational teaching happening to their students or their children. And we are having to kind of navigate that and reteach some things we kind of thought they already knew.
Right.
So is it true to say, because I think this has been our personal experience, you almost feel an obligation to not just the student, but in some cases, you're bringing along parents biblically for the first time maybe too. Yes, you find that's true?
Yes, I do. I think it's hard for parents sometimes to get plugged into a local church, and then the school kind of starts feeling like that church setting, and we really don't want to promote that because we want to partner with our local churches and their youth groups. And so we are an educational institution. We are teaching, the subject areas, but with biblical illumination on top of that. So it can't be the church. We can help as parents navigate some things with their students, but we really want to encourage them to get joined in a local body.
I think that's a big problem and a big issue that a lot of schools face with the growth. We came from one place on the spectrum with Christianity, which admittedly for myself, I was learning a lot as I went. I was definitely a Christian as we entered, but my base of knowledge I did not realize was woefully slim.
Surface. Little more,
it was
grab and go.
not too. I was gonna say maybe a little wide, not too deep, and so I had to kind of adjust a little bit. And I would bet you see that happening all over the place. That's a big challenge to me.
I would love to know, Arizona being, I think, the first state in the union that went universal school choice, not to drag you into politics, but just because now that students have and families have, as I understand it, an allocated state pot of money that they're given every year to spend where they choose. Have you seen Christian education grow in Arizona because of it, or your school in particular because of it?
Yes, we had as parents be able to do the ESA funding through the state, and then we also have STOs that are funded by our tax dollars, and so people can choose to send tax money in and then say, please consider this student for the tax money. So it's not necessarily guaranteed for that student, but typically it goes towards that person, and we can put our tax money to that so that students can have an opportunity to go to Christian school, because it is expensive and not state funded. And so we do have to pay the teachers in order to, and we want to have quality teachers in our Christian school classrooms, and so we do have to be or remain competitive. I say we, but our schools have to be competitive with that pay. And so we've tried to create that environment for our teachers, but yes, having more parents being able to afford it has been really helpul for them to come in. Doesn't pay for all of it.
Is that what you've heard, that people have been helped, wouldn't have entertained it without that?
Yes. Yeah. And my brother's one of them. He's sending his 4 kids to Christian school now because he has opportunity to take off some of that financial burden.
Wow, that's an incredible. I think hearing actual stories of people who are using that money in ways that I think is being
Arizona lit the brush fire. Arizona was the first state.
But people are fighting it. Like they're fighting that option.
We are having, praying people out there listening, we are having a lot of pushback in our state right now that it's not necessarily supported by everyone. So
it is. It's a hard thing.
Well, Jennifer, congratulations to you, our very first Teacher of the Year for 2024. What does that mean to you to be honored as a Teacher of the Year in Christian education?
Oh, it is. It's just there are no words. I'm overwhelmed with just humility and thankfulness, and it makes you feel like you're seen because you work really hard. So thank you, Herzog Foundation, for doing this. And you do work hard. But it's really special.
We'll
so
see
glad.
you in Washington D.C.
I'm excited.
How about some of those conversations?
Great.
Pretty incredible. We're so glad to be able to share these with you.
Not a dud in the bunch.
No, not a dud. And that's good, right? That's good vetting on behalf of the people.
I joke, but every year the stack of submissions grows bigger and bigger and bigger. It's overwhelming how many gifted, talented Christian teachers there are.
I just interrupted you. I'm sorry, but I'm so glad we don't have to do any of the picking.
No.
Because listening to them, I'm like, well, how do you top that? And then the next person comes in. How do you top that? So
we just get to meet them and interview them. It's easy. So we'll
thank you for listening on that. We'll be back next week with more. Making the Leap is a podcast presentation courtesy of the Herzog Foundation. We'd love your feedback by rating us and commenting on the show.
And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Making the Leap.